Let's start off with a cornerback question, actually, because there's been a lot of chatter about this one. I don't think we've talked about it a lot yet, so I wanted to lead with it on War Room. And this question is from Dano. What are the odds that we are open to extending DJ Reed through 2025 and have him out the door? That day before paying Sauce. Reed said it himself with EA that money is no longer his biggest necessity. So the fact that everyone thinks that he's pursuing the bag and he should hit the brakes, don't envy the thought of switching cornerbacks in the middle of a championship window. I know we like Stiggers, but I feel like this is going to be harder than people think it is. And we got sort of like followed up on it. Sort of the gist of the question is like, it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that the Jets are going to move on from DJ Reed. Reed seems to have been pretty vocal in being that, like, I want to be here. Like, I'm not going to let money like get in the way of that. We know the Jets have to pay Sauce. We know they want to pay Michael Carter. I think they've kind of engaged in those talks already. Is this one of those things where his best days are behind him, and even if you get him at a relative discount, it's not going to be good business for 2025 because you're going to get on the hook for 2026? Because that would be kind of my concern. I would love to have DJ Reed here in 2025. I think he'll still be a good starter then.
Yeah.
It's what are you paying for into 2026 and 2027? Because I do agree, like, we're excited about Stiggers. I like Eccles a lot. I think these guys could be like outside starters, not this year, but maybe a year or two from now. And Eccles already has been, to his credit. But I get the sentiment that, like, if it's doable, like, why are we shoving him out the door and acting like it's a foregone conclusion? I will say, before I throw it to you, that regardless of what I'd like to see, I do think this is probably his last year with the team, because I think the Reddick situation is going to get resolved in some way. I think they're going to go drop one of these big contracts. And I just, let's assume they have the kind of year we think they're going to have. They get to like the second round of the playoffs and kind of almost get to the Super Bowl. And now you really have one Rodgers year left. I just feel like the money they throw around is going to be people around Aaron Rodgers, not their second or third best cornerback. So that's my thought on it.
And I think you summed it up really well. I think what's tricky about the DJ Reed situation is because you have the side that's like, just pay him. And then, because, there's obviously fans that just want players that have been good here to stay here. And it's hard not to understand and grasp that. Then there's the side, I think this podcast has been on that side, that there is a numbers game. There's a financial aspect to all of this. The Jets, for the first time in a very, very long time, have a young nucleus of talent that is almost in the same 1 to 2 year window in terms of when they came in, that all need to get paid eventually. And that's where it gets really dicey. That you nailed it. It has nothing to do with 2025 and everything to do with 2026. And no matter what DJ Reed says at the podium, because it's hard to really read into what teams say at the podium, what players say about podium when it comes to free agency, is that it would just shock me if he took a contract that only had money added on for 1 year. Doesn't that seem kind of far-fetched? And if he does, great business for the Jets. I agree. Like, the most logical situation is that you add a year on to DJ Reed's deal for 2025, which is his age 29 season. And then you kind of just clap your hands and you're like, okay, that was a great business relationship. We're going to move on before you're a 30-year-old corner in 2026. A 5'9", 188-pound 30-year-old corner. The problem with that is once the legs start to go a little bit, you don't have the physical attributes to keep playing the position at an extremely high level. DJ Reed, his legs might not go till he's 33. Who knows? He might end up being an outlier. But it's just the Jets don't want to bet on an outlier situation when, once again, in 2026, let's assume Sauce is on a top corner deal, and you still have to take care of Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson. I know a lot of fans are just pessimistic about Breece Hall because he's a running back, but I've outlined many times why I think you can get that one done. And, we've had that combo before. We'll have it again. I think they could pay all the young guys, and that includes Michael Carter to me. So At the end of the day, you can't have even like DJ Reed. Look at his deal right now. There's void money from 2025 to 2027. So like the fact that they have money owed
the
to
Joe
him,
Douglas void money party that everyone's ever
special.
had. Yeah.
So they already are paying DJ Reed some money the 3 years after he's up after this year. And then if you extend him, like it's very, very difficult situation to pull off. I am not a believer that if I'm his agent, why would I just take an add-on year? Because then he's going to be a 5'9", 30-year-old free agent at cornerback. When realistically, if DJ Reed has another good season, which he will this year, if he stays healthy, he'll hit the market as a 29-year-old, but he'll get 2 years of guaranteed money.
Yep.
So it doesn't make sense for him to take on that deal. And I think the Jets are probably aware of that. And this is just one of those unfortunate sides that maybe they find a resolution. But the realistic scenario is that at some point there are people that you can't pay because you have to pay others. And it goes all the way full circle. Why we were almost to the point of being obnoxious about why they should pay Bryce Huff. Pay the guys that are entering their prime. Don't pay the guys that are exiting their prime. And I think the Jets, while they kind of fumbled the Bryce Huff situation, and we'll see how the Reddick situation works out, because Reddick's a great player. He's just older than Huff. The Jets would definitely like to avoid that in the future by retaining Garrett Wilson going into his prime, Sauce Gardner going into his prime, on and on it goes. And once again, you're not paying three corners real money. And you should pay Michael Carter. You're obviously paying Sauce Gardner. It's an unfortunate situation, but it just makes DJ Reed the odd man out.
It's a bummer, but you can't pay everybody. And I hope they find a way for it to happen, but I do expect this will probably be his last year. And I think he'll be pretty good. And they're going to look at this as like a successful free agent deal. And hopefully he's a key piece this year. And, we'll see what happens, but it's not likely. Betting odds.
Joe, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Can you think of one time in recent history that they paid a 29-plus-year-old corner and it worked out? It failed with Tremaine Johnson. In the end, unfortunately, it didn't end so well for the Revis deal the second time around. Pierre Desir was a disaster in his age 30 season. They gave him like $9 million that year. Yeah. And even when they brought back Cromartie, I forget how old he was, but the bottom line is the Jets have paid 29-year-old corners a million times. Not since I've been podcasting about this team do I remember one that really, really worked out for them.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for a guy of his build and style of play. His best season very likely was like last season or 2 seasons ago. And like, doesn't mean he won't be good this year. It's hard to see him getting better at this stage. So you don't want to pay on past performance. Let's do some over-unders. We're recording this right before Game 7 of the NHL Finals. So I'm in the betting mindset as I just randomly bet money line on the Oilers, who I just know so much about, as you could imagine. But this is that time of the year. We got some sack over-unders here lobbed to us in the Discord that I want to go through from Iceman. So Jets sack total over-unders. Reddick, JJ, WMD, etc. So I would say Reddick, 11.5 is what I would put him at. JJ, I'd say 8.5.
Right.
McDonald, I'd probably say 4.5, and maybe that feels about right to me. And then Quinnen's the only other guy I would call out, and I would say he's probably 8.5 as well. Those would be the top 4 in my mind. After that, maybe like Kinlaw is like a 4.5 or something. You hope he could take the QJ role, but the only one I'd put in double digits with their over-under, just based on his history, is Reddick. How would you be taking the over and unders on any of those targets or unders?
I would go over on McDonald and Jermaine. And maybe that'll surprise some people. I wouldn't go over on Quinnen because I think, number one, they're just not putting a premium defensive tackle next to Quinnen. So Quinnen is going to get a ton of attention again. And the bottom line is, it's a weird thing to say. I almost don't care at all what Quinnen Williams' sack totals are. Because he had 12 in 2022, and then he went down to 5.5 last year. In no way did it feel like he was any worse in 2023 than 2022. It just didn't feel that way. I mean, when you look at his overall pressures, he had more quarterback hits, but I don't know. Quinnen Williams is an extremely disruptive player that garners a ton of attention, and sack totals really don't do him justice. And he has such a well-earned reputation by name and talent that you're right. The total should be high. It should be 8.5. I wouldn't go over on that, but I think McDonald is going to be a player this year. I'm kind of surprised how quickly everybody just completely hated like hates everything about that. You can evaluate
It's been all downhill since the Hard Knock segment. Us loving his spin moves in the preseason. It's been all downhill since that.
The thing is, he was great in the preseason as a rookie.
Yes.
And then they really didn't play him enough. And there are flashes when they played him on tape of ability. And I think acquiring Reddick, like they obviously want to be really light and quick and explosive on the edges on passing downs. Him and Reddick on the outside, Quinn Williams and Jermaine Johnson kicked in. They're going to rush the hell out of the passer. And when you name Hassan Reddick, Quinn Williams, Jermaine Johnson, and Will McDonald, who is getting the one-on-one? Like the layup on an island against the backup right tackle. It's Will McDonald. So, yeah, and I just think Jermaine Johnson has just been. I mean, I rewatched his tape recently from last year, and God, there was so much there. He honestly kind of got shafted on a few plays where he was so blatantly held, which is the sign of a really good player. Jermaine Johnson, I don't know if I'm ready to go double-digit sacks, but I think he's going to be a big-time player this year, and he plays the second most snaps on this D line. Him and Quinnen were the only guys that went over 700, and that'll repeat. You can't say that about anyone else on this team.
That's a real important call out, that they trust him as a 3-down player, and he's going to get
the field.
He's just going to get a higher volume of opportunities. The Jets theoretically should be playing with a lead more often this year with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback versus Zach Wilson, which will also open up more opportunities. And I don't doubt the talent and ability is there. As a former first-round pick and a guy who really made a leap in year two to get to that threshold. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch for. One other quick, fun over-under we got from Christian Lynch, which we've done a lot of talking about the Jets using Fashanu and jumbo packages. What is his reception total over-under and his touchdown over-under? I said 1 catch for 1 touchdown this year. So
I'd take half a catch.
That's
the over-under is half.
Yeah. I'd take the over on half a catch, and I'd take the over on half a touchdown. At some point, he will get a target in the jumbo package. That's a fun prop bet I'm looking for, like your Nick Bawden touchdown prop bet from early last year, which did hit against the Patriots in week 2.
Man, that's a good one. It feels like, well, he's definitely athletic enough, and he would be the eligible man in theory. That's a really good one. And you could see the Jets. I hate that, we get so ahead of ourselves this time of year and all the good feels come back. It just feels like the Jets might have a few fuck around moments this year.
Yes.
Where they're laughing and they're having fun and they could throw Fashanu. They could try to throw Fashanu a touchdown. They're gonna let, either Brees or Garrett chuck one. A halfback pass with Brees is actually
we didn't
talk about this. The Curtis Martin halfback pass was a real thing in that era.
Yeah.
When you have one of the best running backs in the league that can throw at all, I had to look up. I'm looking up his passing stats. This is how we get off track. I feel like he threw more than. I guess they were just memorable.
I mean, yeah, of course, the most famous one against the Bucs in the flashlight game, right on the money.
Yeah, in his career, he's 2 for 2 for 36 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Perfection.
I don't know why I thought they ran it more. I guess it was it was just a home run play.
I'm thinking back to last year, the one time they had Garrett throw a pass and it should have been a touchdown, and he launched it out of bounds when he had a bad elbow. It was the one time they called it, and he was it was a perfect call, but except he had a bad elbow. So have a different receiver throw it or save it for a different time, and ended up being a bad throw. And hopefully they go back to that level.
Corley. I feel like Corley can throw. Corley just looks like a guy that they're going to run a reverse to, and all of a sudden he's just going to chuck the ball 40 yards down the field. There'll be some fun props for this team.
Come on, Hackett. Have a little fun here. Make sure to sign up for Underdog Fantasy using promo code Badlands. 50% deposit match up to $250. Get your best ball draft reps in now. We have a tournament live as we speak. I think there's still 2 open spots. So get in there, compete against Connor and myself. We're going to have 2 more drafts in July, another draft in August, and then we're in the season. We're going to have drafts rolling all the time. We're going to be doing pick'ems week to week with Jets players, taking advantage of our guys like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. CR, what are your thoughts on Underdog and best ball? As it's almost that real time now. Fantasy time is here.
We've been running drafts. I would not say weeks, for months at this point. We ran drafts before the actual NFL draft. We've had plenty after, and they're only going to ramp up even more as we get closer to the regular season, where I think the stakes will be a little bit higher. And in the meantime, you can kill some time by doing baseball pick'ems if you want.
Yes.
You can start getting ready for actual football pick'ems. It's been an awesome, awesome time, man.
Sign up. Underdog Fantasy, promo code Badlands. Get your deposit match today. All right, one more question before we go to the pod, where we're going to talk about some of our previous season predictions. We're going to talk about some of the storylines still lingering around the Jets, and do a few other things before we wrap. This one came from JP Waxer about Connor Williams, a free agent offensive lineman. We still get a decent amount of questions about the Jets adding interior offensive line depth, which is something that in this scenario Connor Williams could do. He's a guy coming off an injury, someone that we had flagged. It wasn't, I think he made the top 50 in the free agent board, like towards the bottom. He was in there somewhere as someone the Jets might have considered looking at. Now, I look at receiver and safety as bigger concerns of where I want to make an addition. I feel okay about the offensive line. I just like, it's like, how many linemen are you going to carry? Because we know Fashiono and we know Carter Warren are going to be there as like 6 and 7. We know Schweitzer is going to be there as 8 because he can play kind of all over the place and has experience. So, right now Max Mitchell is like effectively your 9th. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't hate it. I never hate them adding more interior offensive linemen. There's still some chatter about Connor McGovern. I think that ship has sailed. He's not coming back, just like I think the Corey Davis ship has sailed. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Jets like Schweitzer. I think if Schweitzer's healthy, he's a good top backup interior offensive lineman. And if they get to a spot where multiple interior offensive linemen are hurt and they don't want to like pull the like move Morgan Moses to guard and get Fashanu out there, like, I don't know. I think you could find someone at that point. Then you're already in a desperate area. I think they probably like Max Mitchell as their 9th lineman, who's a borderline roster guy anyway. And I'm not sure a guy like Connor Williams wants to come here to be like the 4th backup offensive lineman.
That's the tricky